So what I'd like to cover today is, first of all, what is professional registration, the IFE and the relationship with the Engineering Council, why become a chartered engineer, the requirements for registration and the application process, and then finally I'll run through our top 10 tips for making your application. We will do a Q&A session at the end, so if anybody has any questions, by all means keep hold of those till the end. I have got a notebook just in case I haven't got the answers to your questions straight off the top of my head, and I can get back to people with those. So firstly, what is professional registration? So it's recognition through a relevant professional engineering institution that you as an individual have had your competence assessed and that you have attained the standards required for admission onto the National Register. It's open to any competent practicing engineer or technician, and there's different levels and pathways available. The categories of registration have been developed to provide a progressive registration structure throughout a person's career. The IFE is licensed as a professional engineering institution, or PEI, by the Engineering Council, and we are licensed to recommend fire professionals for registration. We are proud that because of this license, we can grant the 3 sections of the register. And obviously today we're going to focus on the last one, on chartered engineer. So what do chartered engineers do? In the fire sector, chartered engineers include, but are not limited to, directors, chief fire officers, partners, associates, consultants, designers, and senior fire engineers. Chartered engineers are able to demonstrate the theoretical knowledge to solve problems in new technologies and to develop new analytical techniques. The successful application of that knowledge to deliver innovative products and services, as well as taking technical responsibility for complex systems. They're accountable for project finance and personnel management, as well as managing trade-offs between technical and socio-economic factors. They're able to demonstrate skill sets necessary to develop other technical staff. So why become a CEng? It's a way of demonstrating not only your commitment to the engineering profession, but also of demonstrating your competence, credibility and professionalism. The post-nominals of CEng carry considerable prestige and clearly mark you out as a significant player in the world of fire engineering. So why become registered with the IFE? We offer greater influence and professional recognition in the global fire sector. There's enhanced career prospects and earning potential. We offer access to special interest groups, CPD tracking facilities, and all of the current industry vacancies. Through your MyIFE account, you'll have access to our journal, our newsletters, and other online archived publications. There's also access to local and international CPD events. And once registered, you gain the use of an Engineering Council logo that reflects your registration status. So how do we assess your application? We take into consideration your academic qualifications and experience, the information that you give to us as part of your professional review report, which is where you'll demonstrate your competence and commitment, and finally, your CPD and the commitment to that. Should all of these elements meet the required standard, you'll be invited to attend a peer review interview as the final stage of the process. So if we take each of these elements, the academic requirement for CEng is an accredited degree. This can either be a full MEng or the combination of an accredited BEng honours degree and an accredited master's. If you don't hold an accredited qualification, then your application will follow the individual route. The Engineering Council have a qualification database on their website of all the accredited qualifications. On the left of the screen, you'll see an example of the course search. If the qualification you hold is accredited, it will appear as shown on the right. You can see in the example that this is an integrated MEng, which has been accredited for Chartered Engineer in full. Where you search independently for your BEng or your Masters, you'll see that these will be shown either as CEng requires further learning or CEng is further learning. If you're unsure at all whether your qualifications are accredited, by all means send copies of them across to our team and we will be able to look into this for you. If you haven't got an accredited qualification, don't worry, there's other ways to meet the academic requirements. We'll often ask for you to provide more information about the qualifications you do hold. Transcripts of modules that you've undertaken, abstracts from any dissertations or projects that you've produced, as well as a full career experience history as part of your application. All of this information will go to our individual route panel, who will assess your suitability and whether your qualifications are of equivalence to the required standard. For the professional review report, you're asked to demonstrate the Engineering Council's A to E competencies. When it comes to writing these A to E competencies, the key document for professional registration is the UK spec, which is the UK standard for professional engineering competence. This document describes the value of becoming registered in each of the 3 registration sections. It gives the requirements that have to be met in order to gain this registration, as well as giving helpful examples of ways of doing this. The A to E requirements allow you as an individual to demonstrate your competence as an engineer. And a bit later on, when we go through the top 10 tips, I'll go into each of these A to E's in a little bit more detail. And then there's your CPD. When assessing your application, the reviewers will look at what CPD you have undertaken. It's essential to maintain your CPD as it enhances the required competencies and demonstrates your commitment to developing yourself. So what do we look for from your CPD? Firstly, as with most CPD checks, we look at what you've done, when you did it, and what it entailed. But perhaps more importantly, we look at the learning outcomes. So what have you learnt from this particular CPD activity? How will you use that newfound knowledge? Is it something you can pass on to other members of your team to share that new knowledge that you've acquired? And this sets us apart from other institutions who may only look at the what and the when, and quite often is left blank by applicants. Should your application be successful at peer review, you'll then be invited to attend a professional review interview. The interview will consist of 2 of our peer reviewers, along with a member of IFE staff who is there to facilitate the interview. Occasionally, there may be an additional observer who's either going through the training process or somebody who's QAing our interviewers. These interviewers are not trying to trip you up, but to allow you to demonstrate your competency as a chartered engineer. They'll ask you questions around your review report, as well as some of the projects that you detail within it. So, our top 10 tips then. Many people find the most challenging part of the application to be the section of the form entitled IPD Objectives. This is your A to E competencies. The section of the application is designed to give you a chance to show your knowledge, competence, and skill to the reviewers. So I'll run through each of these top 10 tips in more detail. Firstly, prepare and plan. There's nothing to fear when writing this report. You're just being asked to prove things that you already know. There's no right or wrong answers, you're just untangling your personal experience into the separate competency sets. It's important to remember that where the UK spec refers to professional standards, It's the IFE Code of Conduct and Ethical Principles that we are asking you to demonstrate, not any technical or regulatory codes of practice. Secondly, the objectives A to E are all equally important. So it's important for you to think about examples or case studies that you're particularly proud of, situations that you've handled professionally, tasks you've done really well in your role, or problems that you've helped to solve. It's important to remember that this report is about you. You may find that some of your examples fit into more than one area of the competency set, whereas others may be more specific. So, what are the objectives that you need to meet? The 5 areas of competence you need to demonstrate are the A's. This is your knowledge and understanding. So, you're showing how you have used your knowledge of fire engineering techniques, procedures, and fire science principles, and how you've applied them to a particular situation or task. Why did you choose that particular course of action? The B's, design, development, and solving engineering problems. So you're explaining the different ways in which you've applied your knowledge to the tasks. C's are the responsibility, management, and leadership. So you're evidencing what you did to plan and manage your work and the work of others. Was it effective?
How can I like
Was it efficient?
create 2 times
And was
and
there room
I
for
don't
you
have
to
a bowl
improve?
or a
D is the communication and interpersonal skills. So this is where you'll give examples of your people skills, where you've worked with others constructively, presenting ideas and proposals effectively, and acting on any diversity or inclusion issues. And then E is professional commitment. So your application must give examples of your professional and ethical behaviour. You should demonstrate how you comply with the IFE Code of Conduct and how you recognise your obligations to society. This is also where you are able to discuss your continuing professional development. Number 3, the keywords hold clues. It's important to make sure that you read beyond the initial headings within the UK spec and look at the verbs as clues as to what you'll need to demonstrate. It's important to be methodical and use the key words to help you. You may find it useful to underline or highlight key phrases within the UK spec to include within your description. Number 4, don't be brief, go deep. Make sure you give detailed career episodes telling our reviewers about the particular task or problem and how you have used that to meet the competence. As a guide, we look for 2 to 3 examples per competency. You don't need to use a new episode for each competence, but you do need to make it clear how your examples demonstrate the particular competency. You can use a career episode as many times as you need to demonstrate the evidence. Duplication isn't necessarily a bad thing, as the reviewers will have access to your entire statement. Number 5, use I and not we. It's important that you take ownership for the things that you have done, making your contribution clear to the reviewers by writing I statements and not we did this. The majority of the information you provide should be individual examples of when you have had to take knowledge, you have had to take action, or when you have used your knowledge to support others. Read through your professional review statement and amend anything that talks about what somebody else did. You can use active verbs to provide additional impact. So words like planned, developed, researched, recommended. If something was completed in partnership with others, make sure you highlight your role and not theirs. Don't be afraid to show off what you did as part of the project, but always remember to be truthful. Number 6, why did you choose a particular course of action? Why did you do what you did? The volunteers who review our applications are a great bunch of practicing fire engineers, but they are not mind readers and they will not infer or read between the lines. You have to tell them your reasoning. Was there a particular standard you had to abide by? If there was, tell them. Number 7, how did you do it and what were the outcomes? So you've already been through the why you did what you did. So this is about how you've implemented the solutions and what actions you took. What were the outcomes of what you did? Make sure that what you personally achieved is clear. Perhaps the situation wasn't as successful as it could have been, and you can explain to our reviewers the lessons you've learnt, what you may do differently next time. To make your answer especially strong, you can round it off by relating back to how you've shared any lessons that you've learnt and how this has enabled continuous improvement moving forward. You can always discuss your professional review report with your referees, a line manager, or another colleague. They may be able to identify if there's something missing or if you've been overly modest about your role. Number 8, you must demonstrate that you are aware of diversity and inclusion. You can use a situation where you've demonstrated this. On the slide, you'll see a few examples. Number 9, CPD as a cycle. In section E4 of your application form, you'll be talking about your commitment to CPD. So it's important as part of your log to not just list the events you've attended or the reading you've done. Make sure that you are fully detailing the learning outcomes. Should you be successful in gaining registration with the IFE, we do take an annual sample of all of our Engineering Council registrants and their CPD as part of our licensing agreement. To assist applicants and registrants with logging their CPD, we do offer My Career Path to record your CPD. This will allow you to enter all of the required information, whether an activity is formal or informal, the hours that it took, and also the learning outcomes. The intention behind the sampling is not to police our registrants, but to encourage a culture in which they naturally engage in CPD and take ownership of their own learning and development. And finally, number 10 is ethics. Your reviewer wants to see that you understand the relevant code of conduct and can explain why they're necessary and how you adhere to them. Remember, it's easy to miss the point here, and some people do talk about professional standards in terms of legislation and other codes and British standards. Here we are asking about the IFE Code of Conduct and how you relate to this. It's important to be methodical and make full use of all of the guidance that is available to you. If you have any application related questions, you can always get in touch with the team. You'll see on this slide our wonderful HQ team, and between us we've got about 20 years of experience in helping individuals to gain their membership and registration. So what are the next steps for you? If you visit our Engineering Council page on the website, you will find all of the details on the registration process, the application forms, and all of our guidance documents. If you have any questions or queries, you can email them across to the team at engc@ife.org.uk. And finally, thank you very much for listening. I'm going to stop sharing my screen and the presentation now, and then if anybody has any questions, you can feel free to ask away.